Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today, our spotlight webinar, Middle Grades to College, High School Views on Foundations for Post-Secondary Success. I'm really excited to have you here today for this conversation. I am one of your hosts today, Ashley Leonard. I'm the director of the To&Through Middle Grades Network here at the University of Chicago. And in a little bit, you will hear from Erica Faulkner, the director of District Implementation and Strategy for Success Bound, as well as lots of other amazing practitioners and partners in this work at the district and at schools across the city around this really important and exciting topic. Here is a quick overview of our agenda for the day. I'm going to do a brief welcome to let you know what we're going to be discussing here today, and a little bit of context on To&Through and the Middle Grades Network and why the middle grades are so important to be thinking about right now. Then I'm going to pass it over to our wonderful colleagues at the CPS Office of School Counseling and Post-Secondary Advising to set the stage for our conversation today. Then I will pass it over to Erica, who will lead our panel discussion. We have 6 amazing panelists from high schools across the city of Chicago who are going to share their perspectives on some interesting questions we developed around how we can better support students on their transition from middle grades to high school and on their journeys to post-secondary success. And then we will leave a little bit of time at the end for Q&A and share a couple of brief calls to action to kind of close us out before we transition to our Zoom space where we can continue the conversation in our post-discussion webinar at the end. So that's the plan for today. So we here at To&Through, if you do not know us or have not been to an event in a little while, we really believe that schools should be places where students have access to equitable learning experiences and pathways. And we believe that journey starts in the middle grades, which we're going to be talking about today, and goes all the way through college graduation. And we really strive to create those equitable outcomes for students across Chicago by using data for inquiry and impact. And one of the things we do is we serve as an organization that provides a systems view on what's really happening in Chicago's education ecosystem. And we convene stakeholders like yourselves for conversations like this so everyone can figure out what is their role throughout our young people's journey in Chicago and helping them accomplish their goals academically and beyond. So we're really excited to be hosting this conversation today and kind of connecting the dots between the middle grades all the way to post-secondary completion. One part of our work at the To&Through Project is the Middle Grades Network. And we are a space that's specifically designed to help create more equitable and supportive educational environments where middle schoolers can thrive. And we really do that by partnering with educators at CPS elementary schools who support middle grade students in grades 5 through 8 and helping them use data and research to improve student experiences and outcomes. And we really believe in the importance of student sense of belonging and creating spaces and environments where students can be successful. And that by doing that, we can see improved outcomes for students that set them up and provide them with the foundational skills, both academically and socio-emotionally, to be successful in accessing all of the post-secondary choices that they want to make as they continue on their educational journeys in CPS. So we're excited today to be kind of co-hosting this event to highlight some of both our work, the work of Success Bound, the work of CPS, the CPS Office of School Counseling and Post-Secondary Advising, and how all of us can work together to ensure that we are supporting students on this journey and really helping students develop those skill sets that they need for success. So why are we talking about middle school and why does this matter so much kind of right now in this moment? At MGN, we really talk about the importance of developmental research all the time in our work with our educators. Brain science tells us that the middle grades are the second most critical time for brain development in young people's lives. And we really want to make sure that educators understand that and they can use that information to design environments and spaces where young people can thrive and learn effectively. But we don't always, in a K-8 system like Chicago, have the structures and supports to do that as effectively as we'd like. So we really want to figure out how can we create that environment based on what we know about research about how young people's brains are developing, based on knowing that during this time period, young people start to turn to their peers to figure out who they are, figure out how they fit in the world. Socialization is really important. Engagement drops in this period because students often don't see the connections to what they're learning in school and the real world. And how can we use all of that information to create environments where students can learn and thrive and be set up for the success that they need, with the skills that they need to be successful now in middle school, in high school, and as they continue on in their post-secondary journeys. So we think that's all really important. We also think that this work is really driven by student voice, and that student voice and agency, particularly in the middle grades, is one of those foundational skills that helps students access those post-secondary pathways by helping them be better self-advocates, by helping them be more engaged and connected to their learning in school, and to build healthy and productive relationships that will help them on their journeys ahead. And then finally, another reason to really focus on middle school right now is that the district is really thinking deeply about how to support middle school students more specifically. The district, in its recent release of its 5-year strategic plan, mentioned the importance of developing a middle grade strategy to support post-secondary success. And that was kind of the impetus behind this conversation today, is we wanted to bring folks together to begin to have that conversation as the district starts its planning around what is that going to look like and what supports do they need to put in place to ensure that the things necessary for students to succeed are there for them when they're ready. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our colleagues in OSCAPA to kind of set the stage around how the district is thinking about post-secondary advising, school counseling, and what the continuum for them looks like from the middle grades through post-secondary success. So I will now pass it over to Gretchen Rhodes and Tony Petrius to take us next.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ashley, for inviting us to be here this afternoon. It's a pleasure to join all of you. My name is Gretchen Rhodes, and I serve as the Director of School Counseling for the Office of School Counseling and Post-Secondary Advising, and I use she, her pronouns. And I'll invite my colleague to introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. Tony Petritis, Post-Secondary Instruction Program Manager, which just essentially means I am CPS Success Bound and Schoolings combined, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Brilliant. Next slide, please. So we wanted to just sort of talk a little bit about what our vision looks like for middle school counseling and advising in the district. And I know that when we talk about visions and advising, it can be such a big idea to really think about. And so I'm a big proponent of, well, let's talk about the things that are within the locus of our control and what are the levers that we can pull that are going to impact this advising. And so I have here the 4 levers that OSCPA really focuses on in impacting middle school counseling and advising, which ultimately leads to successful post-secondary outcomes for CPS students. And of course, when we say post-secondary, we're talking all the ways after high school for a student to be successful. And so one of the levers that we can pull is that our favorite CPS school counselors are amped for outcomes. And this is based in the Ask a Model program. And so what we ask our school counseling teams to do is to complete their AMPT, which really outlines the way in which their, in this example, middle school students are receiving comprehensive school counseling services. There are decades of research to show that when students have access to their school counselors and to comprehensive school counseling programs, their academic outcomes go up, their attendance outcomes go up, the behavior infractions go down. And so AMPT is but a snapshot, but a quite comprehensive way to really capture what is it that the school counselors in our K-8 settings are doing to advise students to ensure that they are successful to reach those post-secondary outcomes. We also have CPS Success Bound and School Links. And as Tony mentioned, he is these things personified. And so I will throw it to him to let him speak about that in just a moment. And then the other big lever that we really pull is high school connection. Next slide, please. High School Connection, you may be familiar with. We used to call it Freshman Connection, but we've moved away from the term freshman as it is inherently gendered as it has the word man in it. Not all of us identify as men. It's also a little confusing for our multi-language learners in that, coming from another country, the word freshman can be a bit confusing, and so it's just easier to call you a ninth grader. And so got away from the term Freshman Connection and just said, hey, come connect to your high school. High School Connection is our summer transition program for that really important transition from 8th grade to 9th grade. Students get to participate in some academic enhancement. It's not for credit, but students are exposed to English, some math, and some school counseling curriculum as well. And the data from our High School Connection programs are really, really showing that students who participate in High School Connection are 17% more likely to be on track, meaning they're passing at least 6 of their 7 classes during that 9th grade year. And that is found to be no matter if the student is an English language learner, a student economically disadvantaged, a student in transitional living situation, no matter what, students who participate in High School Connection more likely to be on track. And so again, providing that advising and that support to really set up our students kind of in those middle grades as they're transitioning to high school for those post-secondary outcomes. During High School Connection, we do also have our school counseling teams use the CPS Success Bound curriculum and complete ILP tasks, which I'll let Tony talk more about.
Thanks, Gretchen. Yeah, as Gretchen talked about, we have some specific levers to help our students be successful. And one of those is the CPS Success Bound curriculum, which is a fairly new curriculum that has been built in-house in Chicago, focusing on our students. This quick graphic kind of shows you the framework that we use, particularly for the 6th or 8th grade curriculum. So the CPS Success Bound curriculum goes from 6th to 12th, all vertically aligned, so that as they are going to all the grades, they are hopefully building on that knowledge, which you'll hear from the panel, I think, from the high school side of things, for our 6th to 8th grade curriculum, helping our students. So just real quick, if you have heard or haven't heard of CPS Success Bound, in the 6th or 8th grade curriculum, it's really in thinking of developing the skills and mindsets for successful transition to high school and beyond. The framework here you see is, behind the lessons centers on adolescent development and views this time as a time of immense opportunity for learning and growth. A lot of what Ashley was just talking about. The units and lessons focus on 3 major areas. One, it's helping students understand and affirm their own identities and cultures. Investigate their interests and connect these interests to high school options and post-secondary goals. 2, supporting students in development of foundational skills for academic and life success, such as goal setting, connecting these interests to high school options, and calculating their GPA, self-advocacy, conflict resolution, and stress management. And then 3, providing opportunities for students to actually explore their high school options and preparing for their high school transition and beginning their early college and career planning. Embedded in all this is as a wraparound, as a component of the framework and curriculum is the SEL skills, right? So it is we know that the social emotional learning is important. It is integrated in this post-secondary curriculum. Go ahead, next slide. And the CPS Success Bound, even though it's homegrown, we obviously want to connect it to other frameworks that were being utilized, and we know they're successful. So one, it's connected to our own C4 competencies that were created through all the conversations and with all of the practitioners, professionals in the area, as well as connecting to the CASA competencies and one more addition is the Ask a Student mindsets and behaviors, because we know we're all working in that space. All the materials, they are accessible through Skyline, and ensuring that they have access to all CPS staff members, as well as one of the other levels that we are as an office, and we know that helps students in their exploring their post-secondary and career pathways is our ILP tasks, and they are integrated into the curriculum so that those tasks are more meaningful for the students as well as the staff members to be able to use that data. Next slide, please. And then just talking about that, if you are a middle school counselor, teacher working in this field, we really our small little call to action is to use that data that in Schoolings and Oscapa Data Studios. You can easily progress monitor in real time right now, but you can also analyze it at the end of the year or the beginning of the year of how your students were supported for each year and seeing how you can improve, what are your celebrations. That data is there for you to utilize so that you can always be improving and celebrating your wins by all means. And then one of the ILPs in 8th grade is a survey, and it's for the students to complete, but it's really for you as a staff member, as a professional, to get answers straight from your students on their experiences in your middle school, as well as how they're thinking about high school. And I think it's a really good reflection point for you as a counselor, teacher, staff member to use this to like help your students right now if they're completing it and looking at their answers, as well as thinking about how you can. One of the questions asks about their worries and their hopes for high school. Being able to look at that and really plan for that even for next year for your students to calm those worries down because they're probably similar each year and year. So if you have any questions on that, please reach out to schoollinks@cps.edu and we'll definitely get you your answers on any of these data points and using Schoollinks. But thanks for listening a little bit about what we're doing in the Office of School Counseling and Post-Secondary Advising. We'll throw it back to Ashley and Erica.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gretchen and Tony. And I think it's a great place to start to kind of share how the district is thinking about some of these things as a framework for where our conversation will go today. So it is my pleasure to turn it over to Erica Faulkner from Success Bound, who will introduce and lead our panel. Erica.
Hello, everyone. I'm so excited for this part. I really love talking to the folks that are actually in the buildings doing the hard work, but the really enjoyable work. So let's go ahead and kick off. Let's see. All right. So I am going to, as the panelists are speaking, they will introduce themselves, but we do have 6 wonderful panelists across, as Ashley said before, high schools across the city. And again, as they speak, they will introduce themselves, give you their name and their role again. All right, next slide. All right, so excited. And we are ready. We are going to jump to the first question. So we're going to start high level. We are going to talk about high school and just the supports that our practitioners see that students need. And then we're going to start to dive into that support around transition from middle grades to high school. So first question, how can we ensure students access the resources they need to be successful in high school? And we are going to kick it off to Meredith first.
Hello. Hi, everyone. My name is Meredith Ketchel. I am over at Kelvin Park. It's junior and senior high school, so we're in a very special place for this because we get to see kids go all the way from 7th to 12th grade. I'm the art teacher here. I'm also the team director. It's a really good question. I come from a perspective of having access to high school students on a regular basis. And part of the MGN initiatives that I've really taken to is using student voice. So my thought would be using my high schoolers or using high schoolers as like to share out a little bit of what high school is like, to share a little bit of like, what is an English class in high school compared to an English class in 7th grade? What should you look forward to? And using these students to usher in our middle grades students is like, I think the easiest for kids, because sometimes they see an adult and they're like, oh, this is going to be boring, or this is going to be lame, or you're going to make me do something. We talk a lot about in my school having advisory also be a place where our students are forming executive skills and executive functioning skills and their soft skills. That is something that we see lacking when it comes to high school, and using the middle grades as a way of transitioning there and making it sort of mandatory. And that's a terrible word to use for middle school. Like, it's mandatory. You've got to learn how to use a planner. But I think building that in, making sure that they feel comfortable in advisory, watching students who are older than them, and having some sort of like resource advisor, whether that's a counselor or your advisory teacher who's giving you access to like academic and social and emotional clubs and things that you can like attach yourself to before you make that big leap to high school. That's what I'm thinking.
No, I love that you mentioned clubs, like
Mhm.
and joining those things and becoming a part of
Yeah.
something bigger than yourself. Yes, thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much, Megan. We are going to turn it to Ashley. And again, how can we just, and it's also in the chat, ensure students have access to resources that they need to be successful in high school?
All right. Hi, everyone. Ashley Williams from Air Force Academy High School. She, her pronouns. I would start with like the pre-ninth grade activities such as shadow days. So that is an awesome opportunity for students to access the resources that they will have in their prospective school. They will see the climate, the culture, the environment. They will get to know the student body just even in that short amount of time, which is a day span. But that kind of kicks off the resources. They start to kind of get familiar with how the school is ran and the expectations. Then I would lean to the high school connection. So high school connections over a number of weeks where they have like curriculum, academics, and then they also have a lot of post-secondary exposure activities where they start to kind of think about maybe their interests as it relates to after high school. And of course, they have that social emotional component with the counselor, as well as just the cadets, or for my example, cadets, because that's what we call our students here at Air Force Academy High School. They would spend time with those older cadets and just kind of get to know them. And then also just how the school is ran. Again, I always lean on expectation a lot because as Meredith had mentioned, like the underdevelopment sometimes of the executive functioning, they can start seeing that. And I think that oftentimes students learn best by watching others and hearing it from their peers. So I think the shadow day starts it off and it kicks in to high gear with the high school connection. And then when family orientation starts in the summer, and then we kick into, ninth grade and fourth, and so on, it kind of makes things a little bit more seamless and the transition a little bit more easier.
Thank you. So really highlighting shadow days. Everyone, shadow days. Yes, thank you. Sam, we're gonna turn it to Sam now just to hear a little bit about what resources do you feel students need access to be successful in high school?
I'm Sam Barnett. I teach history here at Slory Academy High School on the southwest side, and I use he him pronouns. I would start by just agreeing with what my colleagues who spoke before me said. Most especially, I think the student voice component and giving students who are, I'm a high school teacher, so to me they're a little bit younger when they're seventh grade, eighth grade. Giving them a chance to hear from kids they might know who are just a few years older than them about what the experiences that they can look forward to might be, and the expectations, to use Ashley's point, that they need to be thinking about. I think that's really important. The one other thing that I would say, and we all are in different schools, we all have different contexts. So I think what I have to say about this is going to vary depending on your context. But I think as adults, we want to make sure that we're understanding kind of if we're in high school where our students are coming from, or if we're middle school educators, where we are sending our students to, right? At our school community, we're lucky in a lot of ways. The vast majority of our ninth graders are coming from the middle school across the street, Hernandez Middle School. So that provides an opportunity for us as adults to kind of forge connections, and we're geographically very, very close, right? We're a neighborhood high school, they're a neighborhood middle school. And so because every school is different, every middle school is different, every high school is different, that enables us to have some conversations with our colleagues across the street around what does it mean to be a ninth grader or a 10th grader in high school? What are our expectations for, like, from day one, what a ninth grader is going to be expected to do? Conversely, right, what if they're showing up on our campus and they've been across the street for a few years? what were the expectations for them in eighth grade, right? What are they used to having to do on their own? What are they used to having to access on their own? And what's going to be new for them? What's going to be different than them? So we can all be a little bit more targeted in terms of what we're seeking to cultivate in our students and what we're seeking to prep them for.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. So Sam, actually, I think that was a great lead in to the second question. And it is beautiful when you have that direct transition place, like where the school is there and they're transitioning to the high school. But as we know, across the city of Chicago, it is not as easy as that. And we have students who are transitioning from one side of the city to another if they're in choice schools or selective enrollment. So the next question is, what strengths and gaps do we see in preparation of our incoming ninth grade students? So let's speaking about academics and SEL, and we are going to start this one off with Ashley. So strengths and gaps.
One of the strengths I would mention is having these type of conversations, having a dialogue, being able to discuss what things are happening in middle school versus what's happening in high school, and just trying to fill those needs by having conversation with other colleagues from middle school counselors, elementary school counselors. I think that's that's a highlight, just having opportunity to be in the same space with one another in order to prepare their soon-to-be graduates and our soon-to-be graduates in 4 years. In terms of gaps, the one thing that I would say is like the academic component. Having students understand that they mean different things in high school than they did in elementary school, such as GPA. Teaching them early on that if you have an F, not only is that detrimental to your grade point average, but then also you have to do something called credit recovery, which is not always fun. And it's also costly depending on the number of classes you may have to take. So, having that discussion early on, and then also the financial piece, because if we have a student that already knows that student is planning to go to college, having those discussions early on with those parents and engaging them about financial management and financial aid and things of that nature, because it should not start in high school. That conversation should start much sooner, because we're talking about now finance. And let me think of one other thing. I want to say just really those things more so than anything. But as a strength, just having the opportunity of coming together and having conversations with one another to figure those things out to better prepare our students overall.
I'm glad you brought up the finance piece. Yes, start early, 6 years old if you can. Next, we're going to have Stephanie respond to the strengths and the gaps that we're seeing in the preparation of our ninth grade students.
Hello, thank you for having me. I am Stephanie Nagel. I've been working at Solorio Academy High School for the past 9 years. The past 7 years, I've taught ninth grade world studies. My pronouns are she, her. And I just wanted to start off with the strengths. I think, yes, of course. Would you like to go first, Miss Bland? No? Okay. One strength that I think we can all agree on that our students have is that every single student in our room wants to be successful. And I think tapping into that strength early on and figuring out what success looks like to them builds that motivation to work on these other skills that they may need some help with on, like self-advocacy or even just self-awareness, right? So like having students in the middle grades like articulate like, what is success for me? Is that financial security? Is it inner peace? Is it a specific pathway that I think is great for my family and my future, right? So like defining that right off the bat, most important thing. I feel like our students are able to come in and tell us some of those things. And that's something as a high school teacher that I can tap into and use as motivation for them. So strength is they all want to be successful. An opportunity for growth, I think, is the self-awareness piece. In high school at Solorio, as a freshman teacher, I expect that our students are able to make reasonable decisions based off of their own self-awareness. And so my freshmen are creating their own writing packets where they're reflecting on their grades and their experience of learning the different portions of an argumentative paragraph, and then choosing their own supports and choosing what worksheets work best for them in organizing their paragraph. And so to have those options for some of our freshmen was a little overwhelming at the beginning of the year, choosing their own learning materials, choosing their own supports. It was hard for them to decide because I think a lot of our students may be used to being told, like, this is the support you need, rather than letting them decide. Another hypothesis I have is that a lot of our freshmen coming in have low self-efficacy. They don't have a very confident view of themselves and their skills. And so bringing in, kind of like going to back to what some other people have said, of like bringing in some choice, but also making sure that that choice has some self-reflection within that, whether that's within their learning, their academic abilities, or their social emotional awareness and abilities.
Yeah. And I think Ashley is going to jump in as well. We have 3 Ashleys on this call, I believe. So Ashley Bland is going to jump in.
Of course, yeah, Ashley's Unite. So I'm actually a school counselor here at Solorio as well. Wanted to speak to, excuse me. So I've noticed that a lot of our students, they do come to us with a little bit of that self-understanding where they do have some personality and they can make friends and they have an idea of what their interests are. So that is really helpful. However, maybe ingratiating themselves a little bit more into our school community is where they kind of struggle. And so a theme that we have tried to focus on this year was kind of getting our students to embrace the awkward, if you will, and opt into the things that feel optional, because we also find that is a subtle way to focus on and hone some of those soft skills. So by that, we mean the importance of turning in your assignments on time, the importance of talking to your teacher when you get a grade that you don't really like or agree with, and not only passing that messaging on to our students, but we as a counseling team have found a little bit more success in passing that messaging on to our parents as well, because sometimes they, as we know, they're some of our biggest stakeholders, but sometimes they kind of forget that when their students transition into the high school, they don't have to speak for their students anymore. They need to know how to strengthen their own voice. So really opting into those things that feel like it's not that big of a deal, but it is a big deal, and you learn a lot of other skills that are wrapped up in that. So opting into those optional things and starting that messaging early on, especially with parents, I think could be a very strong point.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Sam, same question. So what are the strengths and gaps that you're seeing?
I think my answer to both of those, the parts of that question, strengths and gaps, would be the same, which is habit. I think habit is, the longer I work in education, the more it's clear to me that the habits that our students carry are so incredibly important and so determinative of their success. And so I guess the question is, what are the habits we want to build in them, right? I think that oftentimes the habits that I notice in our younger students that are really positive. I'm going to speak specific to academics because I think the people who spoke before me did a really nice job speaking more broadly. So academically, understanding what grades are. They may not fully have, to go back to the first Ashley's point, a sense of like how they matter long term, but they understand grading periods. They understand when they need to be thinking about grades, especially when teachers are submitting grades, those kinds of things, right? And the importance of those things. In terms of what we do with that, though, right? The so what. I think I noticed a wide range of habits especially in our younger students, ranging from I am in the habit of constantly checking my grades, looking at rubrics, figuring out what I'm doing well and what I'm not doing well, and then acting on those determinations, to I'm not really in the habit of doing any of those things, right? And I'm just kind of showing up every day and going through my day. And the biggest, I think, thing that starts to as students go through their career at our school in high school, and we see some students start, if we how can I do this for the camera, like, we have groups of kids, some are climbing, and some are kind of stalling out or fading away. A lot of that is determined by just their day-to-day habits, right? Like the are they in the habit of taking ownership of what they need to do. I think some of my colleagues before me spoke about like taking ownership of their experience in high school by getting involved in extracurriculars and taking the plunge on things like that. Taking ownership of what they're doing in the classroom is really an important habit to build as well, and one that I think varies a lot across the ninth grade population.
Just going to plug Success Bound. There are some lessons that deal specifically with what Sam was just speaking about as it relates to GPA. But yes, we do start to see the engagement decline happen right after fifth grade. So continuing as we think about those habits, that's truly what makes GPA. When people think about GPA being inflated, it's like, no, like our students who have developed those habits are the students who are going to do everything you just said, which matters as they go through college. So thank you for raising those points. We are going to go on to our next question. We are switching it now to that transition. And what can middle grades educators do to help students explore and get exposure to robust post-secondary options in middle school? And we're going to start with Betsy.
Hi, everyone. Pronouns are she and her. I am a counselor at Bogan High School, and I'm also the department chair. This is my 6th year here and 19th year in CPS. So one of the things that I want to mention is that, and I just did this exercise with my students, is connecting courses with careers. So a lot of times you'll hear students say, I want to be a nurse. And then in the same sentence, do you like science? Oh, I can't stand science. And so looking at students and saying, okay, well, becoming a nurse, you'll have to do a lot of science classes, right? So we just did an exercise with the students where we pulled up English and just connected different careers through the Occupational Outlook Handbook. And so the students were able to look at, oh, I'm great at English. This is a possible career that I could do. And I know we talk a lot about GPA, but understanding why are we telling you to have a high GPA? What is that for? A lot of programs in the city and a lot of programs within CPS, they're going to ask for that GPA. Dual enrollment, you have the 2.5 GPA. There are a lot of things that are connecting to GPA. So why are we pushing GPA? Understanding the students looking at themselves and understanding, okay, everybody's telling me to have a GPA, but why? And really getting to the root of what's connecting that, what that high GPA is connecting to, this college versus that college, this program versus that program. And so then I really want to, also mention too, is understanding the selectivity chart. It would be really helpful for educators to introduce that selectivity chart early. No, they're not taking the ACT in 8th grade, but we know the students are taking a lot of pre-exams before that leads up to the ACT. So that GPA plus the ACT, what could that mean for you in the future? I feel a lot of people need to look at that and really explain that to the students. And even starting with transcript review. How does your transcript, culminate your cumulative GPA, your unweighted GPA versus that? What does this all mean? And so I feel like if they're understanding this before they come into high school, they can have a better picture of what goals they could set for themselves. Also, too, looking at the career paths in school links, I know sometimes people really want to, get it done because, we're, looking for all, it's what we have to do. But also, too, looking at the interest that your students have, what are they choosing when they're looking, answering those questions? We use it often to where if we know we're pushing college. But you may have students who work well with their hands, who want to do something else. Bringing those trade school opportunities early, talking about that, making it a viable career that the students can really think about and how that connects to the Occupational Outlook Handbook. what's the trajectory of people going into those careers, and how well they can do. So I think just bringing it all together with the GPA, what exactly can my GPA do for me, and connecting it to the whole transcript, ACT, connecting all your core classes and all the classes to specific careers so they know their strengths before they come into high school. That can definitely lead them to understanding what careers and possibilities are there for them.
Okay, thank you. All right, we are going to turn it to Stephanie next.
Yeah, so in listening to what you've just shared, kind of want to piggyback off of that a little bit. I think it's really important for our students to know what the different pathways are looking for when they're in the application process, because the time that you're in high school is the time where you're setting up your application, right? The choices that you're making your freshman year on, ooh, should I join a sports team, or should I be focused more in my math class or my English class? Like, what do I want to focus my attention on? Those are important decisions. We get a lot of seniors who are starting to apply to colleges at the beginning of the year, or even juniors sometimes, talking about, well, I didn't know colleges wanted to know about athletics, or I didn't know that colleges needed a letter of recommendation. And sometimes I'll have folks ask me for a letter of recommendation as a history teacher for nursing school. And they don't know that the better decision would be talking to a science teacher. So knowing about what those different pathways are looking for is so important. And then one just like little anecdote that I wanted to share is that a lot of my freshmen come in with all of these messages from the outside world of where they belong. Our undocumented students are told that they can't go to college. Our students living in poverty are told that college is never an option for them. Or our EL and our DL students are told that you'll never get into a university, right? And not that colleges and universities are the best pathway to go, right? Because the military has very good benefits for veterans, and there's amazing trade schools, and we have all these other pathways that are available to them, but they pigeonhole themselves into one pathway or two pathways because society is telling them that they're not good enough or that they're not welcome in that pathway, which is not always the reality, right? Like, I get a lot of undocumented students who come to me and say to me, Miss Nagel, I didn't realize that college was an option for me until now. I would have started to care about my classes further back if I would have known. And so having those conversations about, like, here is what colleges are looking for, but also, like, you belong wherever it is you say you belong, right? If you feel like you belong in a union, then don't let anybody else tell you otherwise. Look at what they want from you and work towards that as a goal. Let that fuel you. But just making sure we're having those conversations as early as possible, because if they've already told themselves that they're not going to become a nurse back in middle school, then by the time they get to high school, they're already behind in their math because they didn't buy into the subject, because they didn't see themselves in the subject.
Thank you so much for elevating that. Okay, we'll hear from Cynthia and then Ashley Bland.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cynthia Alexander. I'm a counselor in Morgan Park High School. I use she, her pronouns. I definitely second everything that my colleagues have said on this question. I would also add to that is really the push for enrichment programs. Finally, there has been more of a focus on our students in middle school to get them more career exposure. And so there are starting to be more enrichment programs to pop up. And so really trying to get those students connected to programs such as Elevate College Prep at IIT or the Rush Mini Medical Program, things like that, so that students can actually get that experience with different careers that they may be interested in. And then also, even with applying to those programs, they now get to see what other people are going to be looking at, because a lot of the applications for those programs, whether they actually follow through with it or not, they get to see what it's like to fill out a college application, because a lot of those questions are kind of the same. They also get to see what impresses other people, so that will encourage them to be a part of extracurricular activities. That'll encourage them to do volunteer work, because they get to see that some of those questions are on those applications, so that they know they need to set themselves up for success for their post-secondary options. Another thing that I would encourage is there's some really cool aspects in the School Links program. Where there's the VR workspace, where they can look at what the workspaces look like for different careers. And they also can take virtual tours of college campuses. If the link is available for that school, it's also linked on school links as well a lot of the time. So just allowing our students to be able to work and play around with those types of things. And then the other thing that I really do on the high school level as well is taking a look at the data to see what careers are our students thinking about, and then reaching out to presenters to see if we can get presenters to come in and actually talk about their experience in career fields that our students are interested in going into.
Thank you. And then finally, Ashley.
Thank you so much. Oh, she, her pronouns. I didn't say that earlier. Sorry. Everyone made such amazing points already. What I wanted to also build on was something that we try to do with our students is encouraging them to do, I like to call it step work. So looking at the things that you're interested in, or you feel like you're at least interested in at this point in your life, and thinking, what's the next step? So we have a lot of students who just plan to work with a family business, or they kind of they get a little, not stuck, but they get really interested in the prospects that are right in front of them. So if they know a family member who's a nurse, or they know a family member who works in construction, they want to be a nurse or go into construction, and aren't really looking at everything else that could be in that field. So all the other possibilities that could be there, whether it's a CNA or other types of nursing, right? So part of that is encouraging them to look more broadly. So zoom out from the worldview that they currently have, and see what else is even in that field. So maybe not even just talking about career interests, but career fields more broadly, so they can tap into that interest and look a little bit deeper. That is one thing I would say. We also, I know at our school, we had a big push this year to expose our freshmen especially, and our sophomores, to that exact thing, to different career fields. And one thing we did, which I feel like could be replicated at other schools, we just did something simple. Like we played different shows that were just tailored around different career fields in their lunchroom. And so it was kind of that passive interaction, that passive exposure. But even something like that can turn on the light bulb and make them think, oh, I've never seen that before. I didn't know that you could do this type of thing, can be really, really helpful. And doing that early gets them primed to start thinking a little bit more deeper when they come through our doors. In addition to that, and maybe I know I'm biased, I coach one of our spirit teams here, but we talk a lot about our school culture and the spirit of the school. And we have found that when we incentivize things like attendance, or we incentivize just any type of thing, it gets them excited for a moment, but unless the kids really buy into the culture of a place, then they're not totally going to want to be there. So one thing I would suggest is, if the high school in your area, or in that's surrounding nearby someone's middle school, if they have an established culture, maybe even see, can you do something like a preview pep rally? Can you do something like sharing the traditions of your school, or sharing things that are really important to your school's culture, or to that school's culture, so that when your middle schoolers transition in, then they know this is what our community is about, and they are a little bit more, I would say, a little bit more open to building those stronger relationships, so that, to Ms. Nagel's point, when they do go to speak to their history teacher and ask them for a rec letter, they have actually spoke with them, or they are more ingratiated in the community of the school. So I would say those things.
I am loving the nuggets that are being dropped, and I'm so focused on trying to make sure I'm moderating that I'm not I know this is being recorded, so I'm glad so that we all can listen back, but thank you so much. For our final question, I'm just going to ask that the panelists keep the responses to 1 to 2 minutes, so we have time for Q&A. And the final question is, what opportunities exist for collaboration between middle school and high school to support the 8th grade transition and just that transition from middle grades to high school, speaking on either the educator or the student level? What are those opportunities? We'll start off with Cynthia.
Well, I would just start off with just I think it would be good for us to make a better effort to get to know each other as counselors, in terms of me getting to know the counselor at the schools, at the elementary schools that many of our freshmen go into, and vice versa, so that maybe there can be a joint classroom visit, whether it is in person or virtual, or a pre-record, or something that I can pre-record for those students to just kind of talk to them, not just about the school, but also on-track measures. What does on-track measures look like at the high school level? And that can come straight from me, somebody that they will see, that some of them will see next year as their counselor. Also, making sure, I think, piggybacking off of what Ashley Bland was talking about, incorporating those students into some of the special programs and presentations that are happening at the school, even if it's a sporting event or a pep rally, just having them come in to kind of see what those opportunities are like. Also, partnering with the counselor, the middle school and the high school counselors, partnering to really be able to do some joint events. So if there's a parent event where where parents will be coming into the building, those parents will have the opportunity to talk with one of the high school counselors and ask any questions that they may have, as well as the students as well, because that also then brings in the parent to be able to come to ask those questions, and also that parent have a point person as well that they can help to connect the student with. And then also making sure that there's some sort of space to have transition meetings, because we all have, when our students are graduating on to the next step, we all have those things that we are worried about and we're wondering how well they're going to do. Are they going to be have that support? And so maybe having some sort of transition meetings amongst the two counselors to talk about some of those students that we know are going to need extra support when they get to that next to high school, and being in contact and communication with one another. I think a lot of times we, as counselors, I can honestly say I don't necessarily I don't talk with the middle school counselors as often as I should, but I think that it would be good to open that door so that I can talk with them and get into the classroom, or do a pre-recorded video so that the students know who I am and know that I am a support to them in the next level.
Thank you. We're gonna move it to Meredith.
That was pure brilliance, Cynthia. I totally agree with everything that you said. I want to piggyback on that and say, like, creating like a parent advisory as well as a student advisory, having parents from high school talking with parents from middle school and preparing them for what's next is going to be a huge support to our kids in ways that, like, we won't have to do that heavy lifting for them, because oftentimes we're dealing with parents that aren't picking up the phone, parents that aren't picking up the emails, and like I think that they would respond better to other parent groups. And my response to this is, I think that a student group between high school and middle school, obviously at my school it's one and the same, but having kind of student reps from both sides, and whether that's like, Solario and Hernandez, close nearby middle schools, the feeder schools as well, having them all look at quantitative data from all their schools, and having those students sort of piecemeal what those mean in the classrooms. Is our attendance down? Is our academics like kind of plateauing? Like, what are the challenges that you're seeing in middle school, and are we seeing the same ones in high school? And what is something that we can do that would ease all of that? Staff can be there to guide and I think learn from these conversations, because student voice is the number one thing that I'm trying to incorporate in our school next year. But I would say, yeah, And then implementing any early intro to high school pathways, like Betsy, I think, was saying, like getting them excited in middle school and giving them opportunities. I know that Rutgers does college tours for middle school, and more colleges are opening that up. So taking advantage of all of those opportunities would be great.
Thank you. And we're going to conclude the panel with Betsy.
Okay, great. So, some years ago, we used to do where we had all counselor meetings, right? And we had meetings where there were elementary school counselors and there were high school counselors. And I really do think, we're some years from COVID. Of course, this happened before COVID. I really think we need to start moving back to that. So we would break up into groups where high schools were paired with different, elementary schools, and were given different tasks and things of that nature. I felt like that there was more of a connection when we did that. Also, one of the things that we do at our school, we have something called a counselor breakfast, right? We invite elementary school counselors to come into our school, and we go all out for the food because, everybody likes to eat. But we do a great breakfast, and we talk about, what our schools offer. And so I would really encourage, and I know that elementary school always, say, well, my principal won't let me out, but maybe that's something that we can try and come together to try and come up because, at the beginning of the school year, when we're coming to recruitment fairs, you were also in the middle of, college applications and FAFSA, and, but we're making sure we're getting out to the schools. And so that same effort needs to be reciprocated for elementary schools to come over to the high schools when we're doing things like a high school breakfast, so you can learn about what opportunities a high school may have that may be great for your students. You don't know. And we always have people go, wow, I didn't know you guys had, wow, I have a student that will be great for that. So that's one of the things too. Also, connecting LSCs. I think that if we can connect LSCs, an elementary school LSC to a high school LSC, and they come together to have meetings together to talk about their schools, I think that would be a great opportunity because both parties can take back information to their schools with the expectation. The high school LSCs can definitely talk to the elementary school LSCs. Hey, this is what we're doing at this school. I think that we're missing a point, especially those people who are sitting on those LSCs. It would be great opportunity to bring together the elementary LSCs and the high school LSCs together, talking about the success of the program. And, just taking opportunities to learn about the school. I think a lot of times we have counselors or we have people, I'll say in general, that may go from hearsay, but not understand that a school may have had like this great momentum, or they've had a lot of great things with their students doing, or they're leading in different areas in the district. And so getting the information firsthand, I believe, is way more important too.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Give a virtual round of applause to our panelists. Again, nuggets were dropped, gems were dropped, so I hope everyone received. Thank you so much for your time and just being here and wanting to share all of your brilliance. Passing it back to Ashley Leonard.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Erica, and our amazing panelists. I was like furiously scribbling notes behind the scenes because you guys dropped so much amazing knowledge that I think is so powerful for folks to hear. We are running a little over on time, but I am going to ask if Gretchen can come back on because we had one Q&A question for her that I do think is important to share a response to before we go into our other space. So let me just pull up that question. It particularly relates to the point you shared about 17% of students who participate in High School Connection are more likely to be on track. Is there any evidence to distinguish the effects of participation from the ability to come to the program? And do students face any barriers about the program with transportation or similar things that your team or others in the district are thinking about?
Absolutely. Great question. And I can talk about High School Connection all day. To answer, do students face any barriers to know about the program? We launch it district-wide. We share it through elementary school platforms. We share it through high school platforms. We share it with school and network leadership. We have a public-facing website for families and students. So we really do try to remove any barriers for students to know about the program. Very grateful to our elementary school counselors for really helping to promote the program. We also then, once the students are in High School Connection themselves, we do provide bus cards, the Venture bus cards. And so each student gets a card so that they can come, for the duration of the program. And so we really do try to eliminate any barriers and make sure that all of our students can access the program. We average, since I have been enrolled and running High School Connection, we average about 8,500 freshmen, ninth graders, excuse me, a year. And our goal this year is to go for 10,000. And we do currently have about 8,000 students who have expressed interest in the program. So thanks for the question.
Awesome. Thank you, Gretchen. So before we hop over to the other space, I do want to share just a couple quick calls to action. MGN is actually going to be recruiting for our fourth cohort, where we partner with schools to help their middle grade students build those foundational skills that were talked about today, talk about adolescent development and data. There's a link to our interest form here. These slides will be shared afterwards. And we also have a bunch of great middle grade success resources on our website we encourage you to check out. Also, the OSCAPA team and Erica talked a lot about success-bound curriculum, which is available across all of CPS. So we also encourage folks to complete the success-bound commitment form if they have not done so already, to fully engage in all of the resources that awesome curriculum provides around the topics that we spoke about today. So with that, I'm going to say thank you, especially for your patience since we went a little over, but it was a great conversation. And we hope that you will be able to join us in our other space to kind of keep discussing all these great insights together a bit more and how we can take action on them. Thank you guys so much for joining today.